Hello and welcome to another fun-filled edition of Adam's Music Box, where today we're going to revisit something that I talk about quite a lot on this channel, and that is tracing the origins of pop music. What defines pop music? What was the first pop song? And I tend to define it as the commercialization and musical professionalization of what would have previously been forms of folk music. And so what this required was the technology to allow this kind of music to become commodifiable, and that meant the mass printing and selling of sheet music in places like department stores, the popularity of self-playing instruments, most notably the player piano, and the advent and gradual improvements of recorded sound, which arguably hit their early 20th century apex through broadcasting when radio became widely spread in America and other first world countries in the 1920s. But what was the genre that really gave birth to pop music? And I've talked about this, and it's ragtime. And that's why I've really been getting into a man who's not only a virtuoso pianist, but a real scholar of ragtime, one of the most interesting ones that I've ever come across. And his stage name is Foundring. He's developed a reputation online for writing really witty satire songs in sort of the style of Tom Lehrer. I've said that before, and sort of like a much more South Park generation type of Weird Al, because Weird Al was always pretty, eat it, where this is more his satire stuff. If you like South Park and Family Guy and Beavis and Butthead, you'll like it. If not, you'll be offended by it. But what he's doing right now is something that I think is not only interesting, but I would say that this is a huge type of curation project to preserve these early ragtime songs. Now, ragtime is unique in that its rise and one of the reasons among its musical virtues, but beyond that, one of the reasons it became the first genre within what was the new form of pop music. There's always been popular music, but this was pop music as sort of a commercial thing. Beyond that, where was I? Well, yeah, it had the advantage I was saying of being recorded and having piano rolls, things like The Entertainer by Scott Joplin. You can hear Joplin playing it himself on a piano roll. But so many of these songs that were early ragtime and some of the songs that were sort of predecessor genres to ragtime, they exist only in terms of sheet music. They've never been on a piano roll. They've certainly never been recorded, and they're never really performed. Not now, and they haven't really been for 100 years. So what this musician Foundring is doing is he's collecting all of the sheet music for all of these old ragtime and pre-ragtime songs, and he's recording them. And it's a very unique thing because these are songs that no one has really ever heard played. And they're really very interesting. It's kind of what you would expect, mixed with a bit of what you wouldn't expect. These songs, obviously, as a song, they have lyrics, and they're very how they're kind of country and western, but at the same time not. And they're kind of folky. And they're very, at least this first one that he played, which is called, let me read you that. The first song is called You've Been a Good Old Wagon, but You've Done Broke Down. It's kind of like outlaw music. It's about a man who's shot three people and he can't get bail from the judge. And again, it's kind of, outlaw music, but in a very fun, sing-songy way. Now, I'll put the link below. There's the original version and a clean version, and because this is YouTube, I'll put the clean version because he's doing both. Because some of these songs have lyrics that they're not words that aren't all over the radio. Well, there's no radio, but all over streaming today. But some people might not like the context. So the clean version is the kind of thing that you could sing to a kindergartner, to Nancy Pelosi, to your deaf grandma, to anyone. So I'll put a link to that below, but you can check out his page. But he's going to continue this, and I'm guessing it might take upwards of the entire year, maybe longer, because there's hundreds of these songs, these unknown songs, but that in the late 19th century founded the basis of what became pop music. And in listening to just this first one that he's put up there, you can see, okay, I can see where this has influenced blues, because ragtime actually came before blues. They both have some of the same origins, but as a genre, it came before. You can hear it how it influenced jazz and some of the predecessor genres to jazz. You can hear how it influenced the kind of pop music that became big in the mid 20th century. You can even hear its influences on rock and roll, and in some ways, actually in a lot of ways, on hip hop. The sort of bad boy story from the perspective of the person who both is the oppressor and the oppressed. A lot of those sorts of themes are common in hip hop today. So there's really a lot of modernity to these old songs that no one has ever heard before. And it's great that this musician Foundring is going around and recording them so that future generations have an audiovisual record of what this music was all about. So while ragtime isn't usually a genre that people these days think of a lot, its influence is really, really widespread. And I think it's frankly one of the reasons why the USA has been the epicenter of pop music for over 100 years. Yes, you could talk about how a country with economic influence will have cultural influence, but you have to look at the kind of music itself. China has loads of economic influence in the entire world, and it has a great deal of geopolitical influence in Asia, in Latin America, in Africa, and increasingly elsewhere. But it's still American pop music that dominates global culture. And one of the reasons, I think, among others, is ragtime. And now we get a chance to sort of prove that through these real life musical experiments, if you will, that this guy is conducting. And I think he's great because of it. So check it out. I'm going to put the link below to the clean version, and bookmark his stuff. You're going to like it, and you're going to hear some songs that no one has heard before. They're not on Spotify. They're not even on a 78 shellac record. They're nowhere, but now they're here. Like, subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Take care.